very happy to be here today to be able to talk with you. I was just telling Roger, it's nice to see names and faces because sometimes you present and you just like want to connect. So really nice to see everybody here today. And we're really excited to be partnering with SchoolAuction.net and being part of this fantastic organization and to be able to help all of you. Today, we're going to be covering a couple different things. Really, how do you craft a compelling auction event? We're not going to go down to like, the nitty gritty, but what are some best practices that we can help? And maybe you've heard it, maybe you haven't. Hopefully you can glean some new ideas here, but to set your auction up for success. We're going to talk about mastering item selections, like what's that strategy? And then how do we utilize this thing that is new and exciting, this AI that can be scary, but it's also really cool. And we'll show you how easy it is to be able to learn more about your audience and select items that are relevant for them. Then we're going to talk about risk-free items in general, learn more about that. And then we're going to go to the shop. I'm going to give you a tour and show you how that all works. And then talk about pricing, which is so important, and then come back and end with thinking outside the main event and how you can utilize risk-free all year long. All right. So if that sounds good, I'm going to go ahead and jump in. So, crafting a compelling auction event. What is compelling? It's memorable. It's exciting. It's the kind of thing that people are like, I went to this, and not only do I love this organization and what they stand for and what they do, but their events are really fun, and they're telling their friends, and now they're your advertisement, right? So, and they can't wait to come back next year. So what's cool about an auction is just the nature of auction taps into our natural desire to compete and to win, right? And so there's, you think about all the promotion, the excitement level, you engaging, giving people sneak peeks of the items that are coming and talking about the context of what that event is going to be. But the most important thing is how can you craft an event to really maximize this competitive spirit, right? So you can raise more money, so you can delight your donors so that they'll come back. While an auction event lends itself obviously to that, it doesn't always pull through if we don't structure a few things in place. And one of these is FOMO. Thanks to our Gen Z and millennial friends, we have this FOMO, which means fear of missing out, right? And in our case, it's the idea of like really maximizing this for this urgency that drives interest, that drives motivation. And some of the things that we've seen, we've been working specifically helping nonprofits source items for almost 5 years. And so what we've seen consistently is like the auctions that really work and what happens when something goes way too long. We found that that is a auction killer. That is a FOMO killer, right? So the sweet spot, and of course there's exceptions to this, but the sweet spot is hosting that within a week. Maybe it starts virtually on a Tuesday, your silent auction, and it goes and it ends on a Saturday with your live event. But it's that shorter time frame that gets people excited and they don't want to miss out. And then you add some ingredients like, little incentives or limited perks that don't cost you anything. Maybe it's anybody who registers, sooner before the actual live events. You're getting people into the silent auction. Maybe they get a special VIP table. Maybe there's some special event parking. You can be creative with this, but the moral of the story is like, that's that FOMO. That's like, well, I don't want to miss out, so I'm going to register. And then if you're going to showcase your items, right, virtually, don't release everything at the same time. This is a real key ingredient. Put some of the items in and then go and stay tuned because tomorrow we're going to have more, and the next day. And that way people are like, I'm not only coming back to see how my bidding's going on what I've already bid on, but I'm coming back to see what else is coming. So these are just some examples. And of course there's more, but these are some examples of really building up that anticipation for your auction and getting people engaged and helping to maximize what that event is all about. So you can make more money. Mastering item selections. There's a psychology piece that goes into this. And I think this is really important because this then lays out, it's like a building block that this becomes your foundation of how you actually select items. There's something we call donor bidding and buying criteria. There's three that I've outlined here. These are the three kind of main buckets. They can all be wrapped up in one person, or they can represent different types of people. So first we have like, what is the criteria that your participant is coming in the door with? Generally, they know how much they're going to donate. They know how much they might be spending on an item. And they have some ideas of what's going to drive them to bid. And one of that is, well, this is something that I normally would have spent money on anyways, right? So I would love to be able to do that within the context of supporting your mission. Then there's the, hey, I don't even know what I'm looking for, but if there's something really cool and kind of this once in a lifetime thing or specialty item, I'm looking for that. And then you have your people who are like, I just want something that I probably would have bought anyway, or it's a good deal. And so it has an accessible starting bid because that gets that group in. This little formula here is key because it's a mix of items that talks to all of the different buying criteria within your donor base. And this is what's going to help you with these components of more bidding activity, more revenue, and of course, more interest in attending future events. But how does that actually play out? So we're going to start kind of getting more, narrowing down this funnel here. Sourcing items that match the bidding and buying criteria is important. We talk about supercharging your auction. That's the name of this little webinar. And the reason is because if you don't, you're kind of working at half capacity. You're missing some key elements that are really going to get you, whether it's supercharge or get your ducks in a row or whatever euphemism you like. The idea is that it's taking you to the, okay, I've covered all my bases. There are two ways of sourcing items, right? There's the donated and then there's risk-free. And so what I've done is just made this little visual here. You can see across the bottom is we have that donor buying and bidding criteria that I talked about. In the donated section, typically this is what you see, right? You've got services or gift baskets, tickets, gift cards, maybe there's classes, art. Once in a while you get lucky and somebody has a fabulous timeshare on a beach somewhere that they're willing to give you, but that's not typically the norm. So this is what we are generally looking at with donated items. These fall into the good deal accessible, right? They're accessible to everybody. They also kind of lend themselves in the, well, I was going to purchase this anyway, right? I love this restaurant, this gift card, so that makes sense. Or, this is a pizza night gift basket. We love pizza night. We're going to, you get the idea, right? So they're things that either are like a good deal that attract them in or something they'd be likely to purchase anyway. The cool thing about the donated items, and we'll talk about pricing later more in depth, but it's 100% profit. So you have a margin, you have that ability to come just under that retail price. And that just solidifies that I know how much that's worth, or you list how much it's worth. And so people go, oh, okay, that's kind of satisfies that bucket. In the risk-free item, we've got the something they might be likely to purchase anyways. Right here on this top level, I've got jewelry. Maybe we want to take a little vacation, this getaway, and it's a great accessible price point. Or, you know what, we were going to take our kids to Disneyland this year. This is something we were going to invest in anyways. I'd love to do that within this context. On the kind of more specialty, I have this wow, rare, unique, one of a kind, not sold in stores, exclusive bit. We have the, rent a chateau in France for 8 people. That's a fun family reunion. You did not walk in thinking you were going to get that, but there it is. And wow, I can't miss out. Or it's memorabilia that's signed by their favorite player. Or it's, be able to drive your own NASCAR. These are all in our shop. So these are all the different types of things you can see. But you see this as the once in a life, kind of experience items. And together, this holistically brings this fantastic offering. So that when you're looking at, okay, now I know what I need. Now I understand the buying criteria. Now I understand that I need to kind of have this representation. One of the questions that we get is then, well, what's that ratio? What does that look like? We always say donated items should be the majority of your items, right? This is your bread and butter. These are the ones that are 100% profit to you. And then the risk-free, kind of more of the mid-price, accessible to everybody, things that people would be most likely to buy. This should be some of your items. And then at the top here, you see a few of your items. This is where you should see the specialty, like this is where the chateau goes, right? This is where some of the more expensive or luxury items can go. And they're nice to have in there. I have to say, like, if you're going to get 4 vacation packages, get one that's a lot higher priced. You know why? It's going to make all the other ones look even more accessible. So there's some of these little tricks, but this is a great pyramid to just have in your brain of how to have this ratio. The only exception to this are themed auctions. Themed auctions are something that you've gonna, really target a specific group. Maybe it's a Mother's Day auction and it's just all jewelry. This is where themed auctions are really about, you can have all risk-free items, you can have a mix, or you can have just donated. And then another big question we get all the time is, but how many items do I need? So I get all of this, but now it's like, how many? Well, there's a simple little formula here that we always share. And so if you're going to have 100 people attending, then this is for auctions that are really like, you're inviting couples, right? So fundraising galas and charity dinner events, school auctions, that type of thing. So you have 100 people that will attend. You're going to divide that by 2. We call these finding your bidding units, right? So you're going to divide that by 2. In this case, now we have 50 bidding units. Now we're going to divide that number by 2 to determine how many items we should feature, which nets us about 25. Factoring in a few of the couples that actually might bid separately, or a few, people that are coming individually, you can go 25 to 30 items. So you can see how you can easily scale upwards or down, depending on how many people are planning to come. For live items, for live auctions, we generally say between 8 to 12. And these factors are all so important because it is a building block to be able to really master that item selection, which is so important. You have too many items, you're not going to get high enough bids. You have too little items, people are going to be kind of disappointed and discouraged, and probably it's going to be harder to access that bidding. So having the right types of item, the right ratio of items is so important. But how do you know what items, right? So this is where it gets fun. Because I just realized my background is not on. Okay. This is where we can actually determine what your audience is interested in, and that is running a customized donor intelligence report. This is something we offered in our store specifically because we wanted to help nonprofits understand. Sometimes people are like, well, I'm just selecting items and I want to go somewhere fun, so I'm going to just choose this trip over here. And that doesn't always work because what we really want is to understand your donor's interests. So here's a real life example of an organization that they had done really well for a while. And then all of a sudden they're like, we're just not making money anymore. What's the deal? And so they're like, we've had items in and they just don't really sell. And we're like, you know what? Let's run a donor intelligence report for your audience and let's really find out who they are. And they did, and the results were really amazing. They found out that their participants that had actually kind of turned over the years were under 40 years old. And the items that they had was actually skewed much higher for a much older audience. And so once they knew they're working with, okay, these are people that are all under 40 years old, they were actually able to craft an event that really tailored to that demographic. And they were able to add packages that spoke directly to them. And all in all, I mean, just the halo that it had across the board, they raised their revenue by 51%. It's an extremely valuable tool. And we are going to dive into that when I take you through the store. Here's an example of this report. And so whoever you are, you just literally donate, you download your donor data, you input it into this system, which I'll show you. It's like 3 steps. And then it's going to produce this report. Like I said, I'll get into it more, but you can see that you've got everything from financial information, demographics, and then down here is where you have the top interests. This is an aggregated report from all of your donors who have participated in the past. And you'll be able to see, oh, okay, travel's really high, or, tennis is in the mix. So that helps you go back to the store and go, there's a package for the US Tennis Open. I'm going to put that in there because you're able to feel confident about the fact that this is represented with your group. Any questions so far?
This is looking great, Tricia.
Right. Okay. So now we're going to go to talking about risk-free items. You may have
a quick question. Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. So for the donor data, what specifically is necessary? I mean, most of the things I have is just like name, address, and phone number and email. There's no really demographic to that.
You don't need anything else but that exactly. Because what the machine's going to do is going to actually go out and pull. This is the beauty and the mystery of AI, but it's actually going to go ahead and pull about 1,000 different points of information for each of your donors. And then it's going to aggregate that into that report. So you
Okay, and then what if our website, you know, Roger can affirm to this, basically says that the privacy of their information is maintained. So by throwing it into your machine, are we violating that trust? And is this information going to be used elsewhere?
I'll answer that. We've gone through the what they're doing here and through our terms of service, and we combed through that before we made the deal with them, and it is not a violation of the privacy policies that we say we've written for your guests.
Okay, and the information is used solely for this purpose and goes nowhere else.
It
It
goes
goes
nowhere else.
nowhere else.
In fact, it has the highest, and we don't produce this. We partner with a specific company that this is what they do. They specialize in this. There's something called SOC 2 compliance. It's actually the highest level of privacy compliance that's available. And that's what they have for this donor data, so that no one's ever reaching out to your donors. Nothing happens. All it's doing is pulling that data for you.
Okay, thank you.
And addressing this a little bit further, I was going to talk about this in a little while, but I'm going to jump in right now since Dawn asked the question. And thank you, Dawn. It's an excellent question and something we definitely needed to address in this. But the data that you need for this and the data that you should pull for this is nothing more than the minimum data that you're going to collect when selling a ticket to a guest or a supporter. So the minimum data is to get their first name, their last name, their email address. And, you know, even if you need to get their billing zip code, which is required in our software, you do not need to upload that to Tricia or to the AI report generator, because they don't need that information. They just need the email address and the first and last name, and that will be adequate for everything there. And of course, you can always download that by going to your tickets list and exporting as a CSV. So easy to do. Back to Tricia. I'm going to mute myself again.
So talking about risk-free items in general, I just want to make sure that I hit everybody's, you know, space, whatever door you walked in. Either you've used risk-free, sometimes called no risk, or called consignment items. It's all the same thing. And you may have used this in the past and you're like, that was great. I'd love to see how you guys do it. We got other people who are like, I did it. It wasn't a good experience. So tell me how you're different. Or maybe just have a lot of questions about it, or maybe you actually don't really know. So I want to make sure that I kind of hit this from the top down here. Risk-free items, it's basically goods that are offered to nonprofits to help them raise money and boost engagement at fundraising events. There's a lot of different providers out there now, but they all have the same purpose, while some do it differently. It's to give you access to items that you typically wouldn't have, right? And, you know, unless it's a very distinct themed auction, and again, we'll talk about that. You know, when I see nonprofits that have every single thing for their general main event, every single thing is risk-free, this is where you have to go, you know, let's go back to that ratio of making sure that you've really built in donated items from your base. Not only it's a great touch point, but really, you know, to maximize that fundraising for you. Utilize risk-free, put it on the right seat of the bus, which is to, again, give you that additional access to the additional items and kind of just that delight and wow factor. What we have found on our end is that organizations who utilize our risk-free shop typically raise at least 20% more per event. But do we ever hear objections? Yes, this is the primary objection that we get, is if my donor purchases an expensive risk-free item, they're not going to want to donate anything else to me. So what we've actually found is that that's not true, is that there's two different buckets that donors come in the door with. There's what I'm going to donate and there's what I'm going to purchase. But just in case, you want to make sure that everybody's on board, this is what we recommend, is that when you're utilizing a risk-free item, you can always add this little sentence to the item description. This item is offered by a third party. Our organization will receive a portion of the sale proceeds, and then you're good to go.
Can I jump in, Tricia?
Uh-huh.
Actually, I'll let you continue since my dogs are barking. Go on.
Okay. So we've already hit some of the main benefits, but this idea of having a wider variety of items, getting access to, you know, the rare items, not having to pay anything up front, you know, enhancing your fundraising potential and, you know, delighting your donors, but also really saving the time and resources of your team. Or if it's you know that it can take a lot of time to consistently be trying to source items, and especially those more kind of specialty items. But there are challenges, and I want to point this out, because if you've used this in the past and you ran up against these are the types of things we've worked to address in our shop. right? So some of the potential challenges are, well, how do I know this is quality, right? How do I know that this is actually going to be a good experience for my donor? Because you're trusting that provider to make sure that your donor is going to have a fantastic time, and they're going to trust this, and they're going to come back to do it again. Customer service. You want to make sure that they have this item provider has great customer service for you and for your winners. And also there's a favorable pricing structure. There's a lot, as I mentioned, there's a lot of different item providers out there, and some of them work in different ways. Some of them take a percentage of what you make, you know, and we're like, no, we want to make this really straightforward. And I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like in the shop. But these are the factors that can be a little bit challenging to know, right? Because if you press Google, you're going to get like a whole list of risk-free item providers. And now you haven't saved yourself time because you're having to call everybody and talk to them. And that's one of the other things that we hear from nonprofits is that I don't want to have to talk to somebody and listen to them and feel like I'm going to get upsold or, you know, have to get more packages. We've put that all into consideration. And so we designed our shop really maximize the benefits and eliminate these challenges. And so I'm going to show you how all that works. At this point, I'm going to actually dive in and take you on a tour of the shop. Before I do, are there any other questions I can answer about the material thus far? Okay. So I'm going to take you into the shop. This is accessible through your the platform on SchoolAuction.net. So there's a button, and when you press that, it's going to take you into the shop. What I'm going to do is give you a tour. I'm going to talk about the benefits. I'm going to show you kind of some guidelines for selecting items, and then I'm going to show you how to run that donor intelligence report. So here we go. All right, so when you click that button, now you have landed on the shop. And the first thing you're going to see is source best-selling auction items in minutes. And that's why it's one of the benefits here is you don't have to call anybody and talk to them. You can literally just pick your items, put them in your shopping cart, not have to pay anything. And as soon as you're done, when you check out, you're going to be able to download the marketing materials for that package. And if say you're having an auction tomorrow and you're like, well, I just learned about this, and you know, how long does it take until I can use it? You can use it right away. You have those marketing materials. You can upload those marketing materials. Are going to include the details about the package or the item. It's going to have all the photography that's associated with, as well as a winner's certificate for packages that you can send to your winners. But the cool thing is that then you don't actually have to call the item provider. We represent about, I think it's about now 11 different providers in our shop. And you don't have to reach out to them. They're going to reach out to you to finalize your request, to ask for your auction date so that they can come back and get that information. Actually, we have a really handy little 4-step thing here that you can reference at any point. And I'll just reiterate real fast. Step 1, you're going to select the items and add them to your cart. You're going to complete the checkout, stressing again that no payments due, no credit card. And then you're going to download that item information on the order confirmation page. We always like to make sure that there's a couple different ways that you can get that info. So you're going to get an email with it as well. The item provider will reach out to you in about 2 to 3 business days. They'll finalize that request, ask you when your auction date is, so that the 4th step and last step is that they'll come back after your auction's over and go, okay, what sold? And then you say, well, these packages sold. And they're like, okay, they collect the winner's information. They invoice you just the charity cost, and then they distribute that to your winners. So it's really that easy. Actually, I want to say something else about how we vet, because, you know, everybody says, oh, we have best-selling items. What that means to us is a little bit different. In order to even be featured on our shop, you have to really pass some strict criteria, because what we have is a curated collection of best-selling. So like I said, we have 11 different providers, and we handpick the best ones from them, ones that we've got great donor ratings on. So we know people have actually gone and they've you know, spoken very highly and rated it. We actually ask for, you know, we require insurance, so that in the rare occasion that, say, something's not available a year later, that's totally covered and that your donor gets their money back or can choose a different package. So everything in here, you know, in order to make it into our store, there's a process and there's a vetting that has to do with even, you know, customer service. We know that there's a high level of customer services or quality, and that everything's priced favorable for the nonprofit. Okay. So here's the store, and I'd love to get into that. I'm actually going to take you through it. We're going to choose 2 packages and show you how that works. But before you go shopping, nice to know what you're shopping for, right? So you can access the donor intelligence report in 2 ways. It's here in your nav, or it's here. Would you like to get additional insights on your donors to help guide item selection? So we're just going to go ahead and click. That's going to take you to this page. Okay, we called it smart sourcing, right? So you're not just sourcing, you're being smart about it, because you're going to be able to learn what exactly resonates with your audience. We've already hit the privacy. Thank you so much for that question. You can see here, we think that's very important too. And so we have just that reiteration of the privacy data. And the way it works is that you're going to input your donor data, and then you're going to upload that in about 5 minutes. You're going to get a report that's going to look like this, except it's going to be customized for your audience. So I'm going to dive in a little bit more. You have financial insights. So if you're doing, paddle raises or fund to needs, this is, and additionally to pricing your items, this is going to be really important because you'll be able to see kind of where your audience nets out. What's that threshold for giving? What is kind of their rating, their wealth rating? So that's going to help you know, like, well, I shouldn't go to really high packages, or don't go too low because there's more opportunity there. You're going to be able to see general demographics, like, and where they're from, like where they're affiliated with. If you're sourcing sports memorabilia, this is really great because you might be just thinking about your local area, but if there's a huge affinity for somewhere else in the country, that might be interesting in terms of getting memorabilia from there as well. It's going to show you what your skew is for male and female. We had one that was like skewing 80% women, and we're like, get that jewelry going in there, right? Get other items that are really going to speak to that. You can look at the generational demographics. Remember the museum that I showed you that found out everybody was kind of under 40 years old? This is where they looked at that and went, oh my goodness, I didn't expect that. You can see on this report that it's higher with baby boomers and then Gen X. So again, how you structure it, the flavor, the tonality of your event, the way that you reach out to them, and then of course the items you choose. This is a great guide. Here we have the donor interests, okay? So we pull this report pulls the top 10 interests that are relevant across your entire database. So whoever you put in there, it's going to aggregate all that, and then it's going to show you. So for example, this shows that domestic travel is #1. Then we have cooking and exercise, jewelry, all the way to food and wine, sports, photography, and tennis. I know that these are the interests that have come up in the top 10. So it's safe to say I should go to the store and maybe think about selecting these. It doesn't all have to be relative to risk-free items. This can just be around all the different types of items, the type of gift baskets you ask for, the type of other donated items that you would solicit. And then finally, this channel response preference. This is really cool because, we're all about donor engagement. We want to make sure that we're reaching our donors, and there's so many different ways to get a hold of people. What's their preference? And you can see here that for this particular group, direct mail was their preference. Other younger might skew more towards texting. So there's just a lot of good stuff on that report. So I highly encourage you, and it's totally free. It's absolutely free. The one area that if you want to dig in to get some more predictive analytics, see this pink button, you can donate. You can download individual donor data. This is going to literally tell you how much they can spend, all these different points of behavior that are interesting to you. And those are 20 cents a record. You're welcome to do that. You don't have to. There's enough information on this aggregate report that can work as a fantastic guide.
And let me jump in here for a second, because in case you're a little worried again about the privacy thing here, let's point something out here. The only thing that you are uploading is a name and an email address. If you are acquiring insights from this donor intelligence report that tell you what a given specific donor is able to donate, that's not you committing any privacy violations. That information was out there to be discovered, and it was discovered and delivered to you. So yeah, it's a little freaky. Wouldn't doubt that. Wouldn't deny that. But it is information that is out there in the publicly accessible web, and so you are not necessarily, or you're not at all, violating anybody's privacy by accessing that.
Right. And that's a great point, Roger. It is public information, and that AI can sound intimidating, it can sound scary, and there's there's going to be all kinds of uses for it. But this is the best of that use, is to help the donors that already support you, for you to be able in turn to support them and to really be able to connect with them. So how do you generate this report? So you literally click this button that says generate free report, right? It's going to bring you here to 3 steps. You're going to download our CSV template. This is really important because we have people going, well, I tried to put my template, I tried to put my donor data in, it didn't work. This machine actually needs a specific template. So once you download your donor data, then you're going to populate it into this template. The step 2 is you're going to literally put your name, your last name, your email, and your organization name. And then step 3 is you're going to click this button. The button will change once you've done these 2 steps, and then you're going to be able to upload your CSV file and generate the report. Like I said, it takes about 5 minutes, and then you're going to get it up on your screen, and you can immediately download it to your desktop, or you can check your email because there's going to be a link to that in your email as well. Okay. I'm going to click out of here.
Quick question. How
Yeah.
many years do you suggest you go back? Just last year or multiple years?
Unless your database has really turned over in the last year, I would just say that the last year is fine. If you're like, well, there's been some major changes with our organization and we've attracted a whole new, segment, then I might go back and take, a couple years. But generally, you're good to go
Okay.
with.
Dawn, I've thought about this too. And at the beginning of the process, when you're just starting to plan your auction, you should probably run a report on last year's attendees. But then as you get closer to the event itself, as you get within a week or 2 of the event, run the report again on this year's attendees, because if nothing else, it's going to give you that insight into where you start your paddle raise, or where your paddle raise, where your levels should be. So there's nothing wrong with running the report twice on 2 different, populations. Use the best data you got at any given moment.
Okay. And then one other quick question. So when my guests register, it's usually a high percentage, a couple, and they might put their first and last, both names, but they'll only put one email address. So do you upload 2 lines with, the 2, the husband and the wife with the same email address, or do you only import 1 line?
I would you're treating them as a bidding unit.
Yes.
So I would just do the 1.
Okay.
And we don't sometimes have everyone's email addresses, because some people that buy sponsorships, they might have people, 10 people, but I don't have all the emails. I might have addresses, but not always emails.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those things, Kim, where the overarching advice is going to be use the best data you got. You're not going to have perfect data, but just use what you got.
And again, it's aggregate, right? So it's not like, well, if I don't have that one person, it's going to skew all the data. It really is a generalized report that's customized for your audience. So now you've received your report, you know what you're going to go shopping for. Let's go back to the shop. So we just kind of scroll down here, and then I'm just going to go through these categories again. So we've got a bestsellers list. This is a really great place to start if you're completely unsure. It's like, well, we know that everything in here, everything in the shop is a great seller, but then there's some that are just super favorites. Like this Mexico trip is in here every single time. Every single auction practically has this Mexico trip because it's favorably priced. People love it, and it does well for the nonprofit. So we'll come back to that because actually that's going to be the one that I select. So there's this bestsellers list. We've got, beach, faith-based, family-friendly, all the way down to domestic travel, international travel. And if you wanted to stay within a certain price point, you're like, well, I really just want packages that are under $2,500. We have a lot of options there. And it can, like, no, I want to get some luxury packages. We have that as well. So, I would recommend we put everything here because it's fun to look at all. But the best way, the easiest way to shop is by category. Okay. So if I'm looking at everything here and I'm like, well, okay, I've run my
next week. I think on Wednesday.
Somebody needs to be muted. There we go. I got him.
Okay, no worries. So I know that I want to get 2 packages, and I know that the people in my demographic, golf is an interest. So I'm going to choose the Fairmont Scottsdale for 2 right here. When you click on an item, you're brought to the product page. Here, you're going to see the pictures that are associated with it. This is all going to be in that marketing materials kit that you'll download. Sometimes there's a lot of pictures and we just put some. And if you're like, well, there's 20 pictures here, what am I supposed to do? Just choose however many you want to, the best pictures, and however many the platform supports. But you're going to see examples of pictures here. You're going to see a whole write-up, what the experience includes, and then the price. All of the prices here are the charity price. This is what you're going to pay if it sells, right? And then you can very easily just add it to your cart. Before I do that, I just want to show you the bottom here. There's some related packages that come up every single time whenever you click on a product. And these are just kind of other types of offerings that are generally related and that people like as well, that are in the same kind of price point. So that's just a nice little reference for you. But let's go ahead and add this to our cart. Okay, you can see that it's in the checkout now. Done with that. I'm going to go back because I want to get a beach trip and I really want to get this beachfront Mexico. So I look at the beachfront Mexico. I have all my information here. I have the price. I'm going to add that to my cart. Any questions so far? All right.
Is there a fair market value that's noted?
Yes, I'm going to get to how you get all that information. That's a great question. So when you check out, the first thing it's going to go is, are you cool with this? Is this really what you want? You can always, check it out if you want. You can exit out. You're welcome to sell these packages as many times as you want, unless it's noted. I think there's a private island and it's one of the most expensive things in there. The private island, I think it says you can only sell that 2 or 3 times in an auction, but unless it's noted, everything else you can sell as many times. So you don't need to actually worry about that. But this is just showing it's here. We've got this, we're recorded. Now we're going to check out. When you check out, I'm on the checkout page now. Here's the information that we're going to ask. We're going to ask for your email so we can send you a confirmation, your first, last name, your phone, the company. So in this case, we would put SchoolAuction.net. And it's going to, so the company name is, let's just say, Give Hope Love. That's our nonprofit. And then it's going to ask you to confirm your digital platform. The reason why is because this is going to our partners. So they have that information from the get-go. Okay. You can see, you can still edit your card if you need to, and then you're going to press continue. Okay. We're good to go. Submit order.
Actually, Trisha, while we're doing this here, let's be a little transparent here. The real reason why you need to confirm that you're using SchoolAuction.net is because we get a little commission from Trisha if you do this. So I don't want you to be surprised by that. I want you to know that that's happening here. We're being very, very upfront with all of this stuff that's going on. But yeah, I'll make a tiny little bit of money if you sell an item in your auction. That would be fun.
Yes, so absolutely do put that into that box. So you can see that right after we checked out, that was all that was required. No payment, nothing. And it directed us to this order confirmation page. And you got this pop-up that says, please download your item information. So you see this download in orange here. If I download this, you can see I'm downloading the Fairmont Scottsdale. It's going to actually take me to, it's going to go to my desktop. I don't know if you can see this. I just opened it up. Can everybody see this? The PDF?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So
yes.
Okay, cool. So there's a link here, right? So if you click that link, it's going to take you to the little Dropbox to get the marketing materials and the photos and all that. But on the second page is pricing recommendations. To the earlier question was, what is the fair market value? So we have retail value here that's listed. We also have a pricing guide, okay? And I'm going to get into pricing at the end as well. But this pricing guide is going to tell you if your package falls between this and this, here's what we recommend. So you've got the price of the item, you've got the retail value, and you've got some pricing recommendations, as well as the link to get all the info, okay? All right, so once I've downloaded this, I'm good to go. Like I said, you're also going to get an email with this exact information in case for some reason you just kind of move past this. Don't worry, you're going to have your item info. So I'm going to go ahead and click out of the store now.
Trish, can you really quick go back to the pricing guide really quick?
Yeah.
So the
Yep.
item is for us is like $3,000, but it's saying starting bid, oh, over cost. Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay, that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So we are back here. And we're going to talk about pricing. So we've talked about the store. We've talked about how to run your donor report. Strategic pricing for success. This is so important because price it too low, you're going to mess with that perceived value. And we see nonprofits make this mistake a lot, to be honest with you, especially if something's donated. It's like, well, this was donated, so I'm going to, price this low because you want to get people, bidding. But the problem is we're just creatures of perception. And so how are you going to get to the retail value? How are you going to maximize what that item can do for you? Because at the end of the day, somebody that has donated that item, they want you to maximize the potential. That's the reason they donated it. So it's really important to understand perceived value. So what does that translate into? Here's an example. For donated items, this is what we recommend. As a general rule, to start 20% below, okay? So here we have a gift basket that was donated. The retail value is $150. We recommend starting it at $120. It's about 20% below retail and bid increments of say 10. Why? Because you've hit that, go back to that buying criteria, right? Okay, this is a deal. This is really cool. This is something I would want anyways. And so you're satisfying that need and you're making it accessible. But so now you've got people that are going to come into the bidding. It only takes 3 people to kind of outbid each other. And now you're right back at retail value. And you get more people involved and people are like, well, now I'm in it. Now I want it, which is what you want, right? In an auction, that's that competitive spirit. So this could easily go for 175 or even 200. But if you had priced it way too low, you would have missed out on that. Does that make sense? Then we look at risk-free. So for this one, we recommend 20%, and there's a little plus or minus, and I'll talk about that, but generally 20% above the charity cost. This is another place where people are like, well, I didn't make any money on the risk-free item. And my first question is, what did you price it as? Because, it's so important that you pad in that profit for your organization. So whether like this beachfront trip, I've told you it's a bestseller, right? I've seen this thing go for $3,000. It always, there's so much opportunity because it's so accessible. It's such a great price that even if your cost is $895 and you're going to put $500 over, which is what we recommend for some of the lower, like anything under $2,500, we're like $500, right? Don't do 20% here. This is the exception because we want you to be able to walk away with that margin. So like I said, this is such an accessible trip that it gets people in, and then now they're vying for it and it's a good deal and it looks really amazing. And this thing can go, like I said, for 2 or 3 times the price. So don't discount. I think something I just kind of wanted to point out is as you're looking at items in the risk-free shop, these lower price, under $2,500 items can actually make you sometimes more money than the more expensive ones. Why? Because you're going to have more people that are interested in it and you're going to have more people bidding up. The Fairmont Scottsdale Golf, remember I had selected that one as well. So the charity cost is $25.95. You're going to put it in at 20% above the charity cost price, right? So that's about $3,100. So even if this only sells, even if one of your golfers show up, you've just built in $1,100. But no matter what happens, you've got that margin and the potential to make more money on that. And that's really important when you're talking about risk-free items. A lot of the, some of the issues that we've talked about with people that come in going, I don't really know, is that I didn't make any money. And so this is something that we really like to stress, is to be able to price all of your items, both donated and risk-free, for success. And then to close, I want to talk about thinking outside the main event, right? There's you might have, your big event, your big auction, your big gala, whatever it is that happens. But then how do you utilize risk-free? I could actually do a whole webinar on this, but I'm just going to point out 3 really quickly here. How do you utilize your items in the risk-free store for the whole year? And one of the ways to do that is to kind of think about smaller subgroups, right? So if you know who your major donors are, or if you decided to collect that information with the donor intelligence report, What about, so these are some that I've actually done and have done really well. So these are proven. Vacation for a cause is one. If you market it like this is, everything's going to be a vacation for a cause. We're going to have some, you know, you're going to have some that start in that $1,300 price range, throw Mexico in there all the way up to some of the luxury. So you got something for everybody. You do your job marketing that well, and you target people that you know can afford it, you're going to be able to make money. And this could be virtual on your fantastic platform, right? Another one is maybe it's a Father's Day auction, and it's like you don't want to invest in the whole idea of having to, you know, create another in-person event. But this really lends itself to either that, if you're going to have a golf tournament, or just a virtual auction. This could be a sports auction that would be kind of fun to do around Father's Day. And one of our favorites is the Mother's Day themed auction with jewelry. We are so fortunate to have this amazing partner. I don't know if you guys have heard of Jewels with a Purpose, but they've been serving the nonprofit community for about 20 years. Elisa Friedrich, she's a European designer and founder. Her stuff's gorgeous. I'm actually wearing one of them. This is one of my favorite pieces. This is actually in the auction packages. And the quality is amazing. And what they just have a heart. They have a true heart for nonprofits. Their items are only available for nonprofit auctions. So that makes it really special. The other thing is that they price them at wholesale, and their items are worth like 2 to 3 times as much as what the wholesale pricing is. So it's very favorable. It's very favorable for you to be able to raise money. But that's something that's worked really well, is to have a Mother's Day auction, go get, you know, one of the packages in there. And definitely if you're having an in-person event, have jewelry there. It sells really well, but it also works out really well virtually for some of these themed auctions. So these are just some ideas to get you thinking of how to utilize this throughout the year.
I have a question about the jewelry. If we say get 20 pieces of jewelry, do we physically have the jewelry at the site to be able for the people to take when they buy it, or do they have to get it after?
So you can do it either way you want. They are happy to ship ahead of time to your event. The 2 types of items that we can do advanced shipping in terms of your event are jewelry and then the memorabilia.
And do we pay for that? Do we have to pay for that up front?
No, it's still all risk free. Yeah. So yeah, so it's great. So it's like, so there we have like 3 different packages, the 3 main packages, and there's some smaller ones, but so this one you see has, you know, 12 items, right? So if you're gonna have 12 items, you just let them know when your auction's over. They'll reach out and go, how did it go? And you're like, we sold 9. And they're like, okay, great. Then just ship the other ones back. Everything is shipped free to you. The jewelry does not cost, I mean, it costs very little to ship back. So it's like $50. And the other thing that you can do, and this is just something I like to tell people to do, this isn't necessarily something that they're going to force you to do. They're just going to say, what sold great? But here's just some little ideas, because if say you sold 9 out of the 12, and then you have 3 left, you can either just buy them wholesale and use them for incentives for your donors, or as thank yous, or save them for next year, or you can ship them back. So totally up to you.
Okay.
Did she say what the price point is for the jewelry?
The jewelry is, I looked at it at one point. I can't remember what they started at, but I think the prices were pretty reasonable. I looked at it.
They really are. So it's like they can start at 90. And then I think the most expensive is like $250 on the whole the cost. But the ones that cost that, you know, those are actually worth $600-700. So what you're going to get is for these guys, after you choose the jewelry auction package, you're going to get a PDF. It's going to have all of the different pictures in there. It's going to have the price, what they recommend you started at, and all that good stuff.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So that wraps up what I was going to talk to you about today. So I'll turn it back over to Roger, and we can open it up to questions.
Okay, we do have a couple of questions that have come in the chat, so I'll throw them over to you. For online silent auctions, is your formula for number of items the same as it would be for in-person silent auctions?
It is. And that's a great question, because, you know, whether or not they're in person or not, it really kind of comes down to, you still have that couple, you still have that bidding unit. So I think this is where it comes down to knowing your database. If you have a database and you're going to be having a targeted auction that's really more about the individuals, then you're going to skew that a little higher on items. But generally speaking, this does work because you want to have those 2 items for one person.
I also agree with Trisha's formula there, and I've used it myself many times over the years to the shock and horror of many of our customers who think it's far too few items. But the idea is that it does tie back into that idea of FOMO. We really, really want people to bid on the items, thinking that if they don't bid aggressively, they ain't gonna win something.
Right.
That's where we want to get to. So fewer items creates scarcity, which creates FOMO, which creates bids, which creates
Right.
money.
And and this is where it's like on your auction platform, I'm sure you have all these fantastic tools, but if you want to come back, because not everybody's going to win, right? But yet they had this money. And they're like, what am I going to do with this? That's a great time to ask for, a fund in need or additional donation. So you can still utilize that. But absolutely, everything Roger had said, absolutely.
Okay, next question. This is a great question. One of our customers says, we also do carbon offsets. Do any of your vendors include that? Do we know that data about any of your vendors?
Carbon offsets.
Yeah.
Are we talking about authenticity here for the memorabilia?
No, I think we're talking about, with regards to things like travel, travel is going to generate a lot of environmental impacts and some.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So this is actually, that's a great question. And everything that we do is digital on the package side. So they're going to get their vouchers. They're going to get this all via email. So there's not like 1,000 pieces of paper that are coming. So it's very supportive of that concept for sure.
Yeah, and as for the specific items themselves, there's such a range of donors out there that undoubtedly the answer is some of them do, but we don't know necessarily which ones do. So, we have imperfect information on that. Okay, next question that came up. If we have questions or run into issues while using the item shop or generating the donor report, who do we reach out to for support?
Support at RiskFreeItemShop.com. So this is going to be something that's listed on our site. You'll see that right on top of the nav. It's also something that you're going to see on that PDF when you download it. So it's just super easy. Support at RiskFreeItemShop.com. You're going to have several different levels of support. So once the item provider is reaching out to you, you can ask specifics about that package. But anything that has to do with the shop, and you can come to us anytime. Like we're here, we're your like super customer support person. So we're always here to help you to facilitate anything. If for some reason you're like, well, I haven't heard from the donor, from the item provider, is everything cool? We're here. So we are happy to be that first point of contact for you. And then, like I said, once you're engaging with the actual provider and they're like, coming back to you and asking for your auction date and sending things out, we're here in the background and they are there to facilitate all your questions. So lots of support across the board.
And Trisha, would you be willing to share your slides with the audience? Let me email them to people afterwards.
I'm good with that. Sure.
Cool. Fantastic. Then anybody who wants a copy of the slides can ask me for it and I'll be happy to send them to you. I will also be posting the recording. We're going to put it up on our YouTube channel and I'll send a link out to everybody letting them know what's going on. We do have one question that just came in. What are payment options? My school doesn't have a credit card. They pay by check.
That's fine. Yeah, and that's
Cool.
something like the item provider, you can pay them by credit card, you can do digital, you can write them a check. That's no problem.
Cool. Generally, if you're offering them money, they'll find a way to take it.
Yeah, I think it's never, yeah. Carrier pigeons, whatever it is, I'm sure they'll make it work. It's really, really, really
All
fun.
right. Any last questions, folks? Get them in here. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, though, and we will put it up online and everybody can see it. Thank you, everybody, for attending. And thank you, Trisha. It's been a great presentation. I really appreciated learning more. And everybody have a lovely day.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Robert. And thank you, everybody, for coming. Take care.